What if I told you one of anime's most important characters runs a convenience store? A character whose mind rewrote what anime characters could be. He's not the protagonist, he's not even around all that often. But without him, Bleach falls apart, and so does the anime medium as we know it. Let's talk about how Kisuke Urahara changed anime. Unlike how I usually do things, this won't be as much a story, it's going to be more about what he's influenced within the genre and how fascinating he is conceptually. He's one of those characters who only gets more interesting as you dive deeper into them. We'll get to him in Aizen and even a huge character inspiration later. However, I do need to lay the groundwork first. Kisuke, along with Tessai and Yoruichi, grew up around nobility. After joining the Gotei 13, he became the head of the Soul Society's detention unit. This was connected to the Stealth Division where Yoruichi was part of. With his remarkable talent and intellect, he eventually became the captain of the 12th Division. Here he meets Hiyori. Like many in the 12th Division, she was fond of her prior captain, and so she chose not to accept Kisuke. This puts him in an awkward position. He wants to relate to his comrades, but also, he's their captain and he will do things the way he views best. The tension between them gets to the point that she chooses to fight him, and here we see the duality he portrays that makes him so interesting. When she attacks, he shows her he's capable of dodging, but specifically doesn't. He also creates the Shinigami Research and Development Institute and specifically recruits a man from the Nest of Maggots, a literal super prison named Mayuri. He believes that with the proper outlet, these criminals can be productive, and here he puts his money where his mouth is. For years, things are good. One of his creations is a bodysuit for vanishing souls, and right around the time of its creation, a lot of strange disappearances start happening. It's Hiyori who investigates, and once Kisuke learns of this, he goes after her because he believes she's in great danger. He's told not to, but he does it anyway, where his OG bestie Tessai agrees to help him. It's here that marks probably the most important moment of his life. He finds Hiyori, but not just her. These people aren't injured, it's worse. They're turning into soul monsters called hollows. Sosuke Aizen is there, and it becomes evident this was intentional. Aizen's been experimenting on them. Urahara does what he can and takes them to a lab to save them, but not only does he fail to reverse their condition, he's now in a position where it looks like he's the culprit behind this. Kisuke is arrested for crimes Aizen committed, and he's set to be stripped of his powers. Thankfully, everyone's favorite bae, Yoruichi, rescues him before that happens. So Urahara, his besties, and 8 Holofying Soul Reapers escape to the human world, where they'll have to be hiding for the rest of their lives. But this is why Kisuke is so compelling. Yes, I'm certain he feels guilt over the situation he's placed everyone in, which is why he tries to do right by them. He can't cure the holified victims, but he can slow down the process and give them some control. In a twist of fate, something similar leads to him helping Isshin and Masaki, and if not for Urahara intervening, Ichigo, Bleach's main character, wouldn't exist. But here's the thing, while Kisuke is in exile, he makes no attempts to clear his name. If you were forced out of your home for crimes you didn't commit, you'd feel a certain way about that and probably want 2 things, the truth to be told and revenge. He only focuses on the latter. I think it's because he realizes he can do more good outside the system than within it. When the spotlight was on him, he failed, so instead, he'll operate from the shadows. If I prepare 1,000 options, all I need is for one of them to work, so I make a habit of preparing anything and everything that shows any kind of promise. That's just how I work. That is the mind of someone you don't want to mess with. Logic, strategy, creativity, you name it, he has it. What's even scarier is he's a morally gray character who can justify actions as long as they are for the greater good. Things like putting his creation, the Hogyoku, inside Rukia, despite that putting her in grave danger. Or not intervening to stop Renji and Byakuya from taking her, which he almost certainly could have. He used Ichigo for most of the series to serve his own goals. When he joined the fight against the Espada, it seemed like he had ulterior motives. This even plays into the Fullbring arc, where because we know what he's capable of, he's a believable threat, which allows Ichigo to be manipulated. The whole plot basically happens because you can't trust him fully, and that's when he was actively doing something nice. Unlike most genius characters, Urahara is almost too smart for his own good. His mind is a weapon, and also a burden. The consequences of his genius are seen throughout the series. His creations, his actions, his failures shape a lot of the plot, but he's more than a burdened genius. He's the most versatile character in the series, by far. His background is a big reason for that. He has experience in stealth, leading a correctional facility, creating a research and development department, and of course, Hogyoku. So when it seems like he's a cheat code, it's because he is. However, this molds more than his skill set, it informs his mindset. A big part of his story hinges on the concept of protecting the status quo. If someone was banished from a system and chooses to work outside of it, you might think that's contradictory, but it actually makes sense. Think about what I just said. If you grew up around nobility, had experience in covert ops, and headed correctional units, of course you'd see value in the status quo. Especially when he has an even deeper knowledge of the actual workings of their world. He knows more about the Soul King than anyone, and has knowledge of a healing hot spring Squad Zero has, but we don't know how or why this is. This perfectly ties into the moral grayness of his character because in fiction, it's easy to view this from a wide lens. In real life, look at the last year, or right now. Protecting the status quo comes with its own set of problems. So of course, on top of this, dude's a major troll. He is the best combination of goofball and badass I've ever seen. I said it with Gin, but it also applies to Kisuke. There's always an air of mystery to him, and whenever he's on screen, the show is better. Speaking of Gin, make sure you watch my video on him. Urahara's role within this series cannot be understated. Between his friendship with Tessai and Yoruichi, the complex relationship he has with the Vizards, being a predecessor to Mayuri, an intellectual rival to Aizen, and the mentor to Ichigo, plus half the reason he even exists, Kisuke's web of influence spans all across the series. I'm going to go a little deeper into two of these, Mayuri and Aizen. For Mayuri, it was curious that Urahara literally says he sees a lot of himself in that psychopath. This is a guy who is rotting in a prison for the most dangerous people in the Soul Society, a cruel, sadistic man who craves scientific advancement above all else. But that's what makes the comparison so interesting because it's accurate. The difference comes down to two things Kisuke has that Mayuri does not: morals and restraint. Kisuke cares about people. The latter doesn't. Mayuri experiments because he can. Urahara questions whether he should. I kind of wonder if Kisuke made that comparison and freed him because he sees Mayuri as a warning to himself. If he didn't care about others, if he lacked empathy, that's probably who he would be. And I think this constant reminder of that is really grounding for his character. And now for the big one, Aizen. From one perspective, Bleach is one long game of chess between these two geniuses, and Ichigo is simply the best piece on the board. Aizen is so powerful that he views everyone else as pawns, while Kisuke is turning his pawns into better pieces. Their mutual hatred stems from direct conflict, opposing beliefs, and even extends to philosophy outside the series itself. Anyone would hate Aizen in Urahara's position. Kisuke found out he was experimenting on people, failed to stop him, then took the blame for those crimes, forcing him and the people he was closest to flee to another world. He's also the only one who knows Aizen is up to something and that no one is doing anything about it, which eats at him. That's why how things played out were perfect. He never stopped paying for his initial failures, and it wears on him. He'll laugh or joke it off, but he has to be exhausted. He knows too much and shares too little, putting a massive burden on himself. But in typical Kisuke fashion, he's largely out of sight during the majority of Aizen's final arc, and finally the chess master comes out to play when his best piece is in a position that allows Kisuke to win. The man that took everything from Urahara gets sealed by him, almost serving as a form of penance. Aizen hates Kisuke, ironically, because he respects him. To him, Urahara is the only other mind on his level, and yet he doesn't take advantage of it. Remember that status quo stuff from before? How Kisuke wants to largely keep it intact? Aizen believes the opposite. The only status quo worthy of maintaining is one he comes up with. As far as I can remember, the only time Aizen loses his cool in the series is when he's talking with Kisuke. He tells him it's disgusting that he can sit idly by when he knows the truth. The Soul King is unfit to rule over him. The world should not be accepted as is, but people like them should strive to make the world something more. To do nothing is to be a loser. Aizen is a victor. Their dynamic gets more interesting because it's rooted in philosophy. Aizen represents a Nietzschean viewpoint of the Übermensch, basically someone who views themselves above morality and believes progress is the most important thing. How is evolution best achieved? By life's greatest motivator, suffering. If you're talented, you should act. And Aizen makes nearly every person in the series who is considered a prodigy suffer to make them grow. Urahara, on the other hand, represents a conflicting Buddhist view, where instead of embracing suffering, you choose to aid others going through it. You aren't above morality, you show these people compassion, which is perfect because guess what I learned? Kisuke's Bankai contains the word Kanon. Kanon is seen as a goddess of compassion. The depth of these characters is unreal. If you're an author and this doesn't inspire you, I don't know what will. Plus, let's be honest, without Kisuke Urahara, we would not have today's most popular, eccentric, overpowered, morally gray mentor who covers their eyes. He's clearly a major influence on Gojo, and without Gojo, sorry, but instead of being one of the biggest anime ever, Jujutsu Kaisen would be irrelevant. But it goes further. Gojo's rivalry with Sukuna shares a number of parallels with Urahara and Aizen, which might make for a video all on its own. That's only one example. His introduction has directly inspired anime coming out right now like Gachi Akuda. Hell, he's influenced my own manga. He also redefines mentorship. Instead of old dudes whose glory days are well behind them or guys going on their last ride, Urahara, as far as we know, is in his prime. He's not someone who retired of his own accord, he was forced into exile. The coat he wears shows that. It's the inverse of the Gote 13s. Is he strong as hell? Yes, but that's not what defines him. He's a scientist, a tactician. The oddball genius trope is everywhere now, and he's one of the guys that made that cool. What really set him apart, though, is that he doesn't follow the typical mentor playbook. Many end up outliving their usefulness and die to motivate the protagonist. Urahara flips that concept on its head. Instead, he played a major role in defeating Aizen. You could even make the argument that Urahara isn't really mentoring Ichigo in the traditional sense. He doesn't give heartfelt speeches or hold his hand through a journey. In all honesty, he uses Ichigo as a chess piece. He's one variable in a larger experiment. And when doing the more traditional training, it's often for problems that we don't even know about yet. When it's all said and done, I think it's undeniable. Kisuke Urahara changed anime. Now subscribe or die.